Hi, welcome to my EcoBUZZ. My name is Jessica Gregory. Some of you may have been hearing of some new research that was just published at the end of June regarding raising monarch butterflies in captivity. Now, this research is discussing the fact that some monarch butterflies raised in captivity may lose the ability to migrate. So I want to talk about that research a little bit more because it definitely has major significance, particularly for our ecological communities, also for the commercial businesses that raise and breed monarch butterflies for use in weddings and other events. But it also has some potential ramifications for hobbyists and nature enthusiasts who like to raise monarch butterflies at home. So I want to just go over a couple of the main findings that were in this research to help us understand it a little bit more. Now, this research was done by a graduate student at the University of Chicago who wanted to investigate whether the migration patterns of commercially raised butterflies was different from the wild populations of monarch butterflies. The first finding that was notable was the fact that the commercially raised monarch butterflies used in this study were actually of a completely different genetic population than any of the other butterflies found in North America or the rest of the world. And that shows that breeding in captivity has given rise to distinct genetic variations in this population. Second, this research found that when a population of captive monarch butterflies was raised side by side with the wild butterflies from North America, they were placed in a flight simulator and no directional orientation was found for the captive butterflies, even though the wild population oriented itself toward the south, which is the direction of migration and is what you would expect for a late summer, early autumn generation of butterflies. So it shows that there is a distinct difference between captive and wild populations. So then the question becomes, have these butterflies lost the ability to migrate, or are they simply missing environmental cues that the wild populations are receiving? Well, the previous genetic research showed that the population is genetically different from any of the wild populations. So it could be that these butterflies are just non-migratory after being raised in captivity for several generations. But then there's also a concern of whether releasing those non-migratory butterflies into the wild migratory populations could then cause the wild butterflies to have some issues with migration as well. And that's still an unknown. Another thing that the researchers in this project looked at was to see whether raising monarchs indoors versus outdoors throughout their life cycle made a difference in how they oriented when it came time for migration. What happened was that some butterflies were placed in indoor chambers set up to simulate autumn-like conditions. Some of those butterflies were unable to orient in a southerly direction, again, the direction of migration, which would then impact their ability to make the journey all the way to Mexico in the fall. While that wasn't the case for every single butterfly that was raised indoors, the fact that some did have trouble with it indicates that there's some environmental cue that's missing when butterflies are raised indoors, and it's not temperature, it's not light, it's some other environmental cue. There are several generations of monarch butterflies throughout a summer period. So from June through late July, maybe early August, those are the non-migrating generations. It's only the very last generation of the summer, so getting into late August and September, those are the butterflies that actually will migrate south. So those are the ones that we are most concerned with here. So how does this news impact nature enthusiasts like myself who enjoy raising caterpillars throughout the summertime? Well, based on this research, I would suggest keeping the caterpillars outside as much as possible. You can get a butterfly pavilion kind of like this that's covered in mesh that you can keep it enclosed in there, or you can even buy like a mesh bag or make a mesh bag that you can attach over a plant if you have milkweed plants in your yard. Keeping them outside is going to be the best policy. Even when they become a chrysalis, you're still going to want to find a safe place to keep them outdoors, as that apparently does have some impact on their migratory ability. Now, once again, during the summer, this time in July, the caterpillars that I'm raising right here are not going to be the generation that migrate down to Mexico. So is it as big of a deal for them? No, but there's still more research that's needed. We don't know all of the details and all of the other factors that are involved with the migration of these butterflies. So better to be safe than sorry. It may also be prudent to kind of hold off on those plans to release butterflies at weddings or other events this summer, just until more research has been done to confirm the effects that raising these caterpillars commercially might have on the wild populations when those butterflies are released. Overall, definitely important to keep in mind, particularly as the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is considering listing the monarch butterfly as a threatened species. So these results may impact some of the considerations around that listing. What we do know, though, is that the monarch butterfly is an amazing species of insect. Its migration is really parallel to none other. We definitely want to do what we can to make sure that we protect this species and encourage its thriving in the future. So another thing you can do to help this species is to plant a pollinator garden. Plant some flowering plants that will be nectar sources for these butterflies as they begin their migration in the fall. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you have a great afternoon. Happy naturing.